tools are comparable to those of existing tools in terms of functionalities. In Unix or Linux OS, you can change the timestamp with the touch command, but in this OS does not provide timestamp related API. In Windows, however, a simple set time, GW set information file, and NT-set information file function are provided. SetFile time function is used for bulk change tool. The function can modify 3 timestamps, i.e. creation, modification, access time. If the entry modification timestamp cannot be changed, and also cannot change below a second level, in other words, nanosecond resolution. At the 2005 Black Hat conference, James Frost and Vinnie Liu of the Metasploit project presented their anti-forensics tool named Timestamp. Despite the fact that the timestamp utility has been discontinued in successive development activities, the tool continued to draw interest. Because there is no API for modifying file name timestamp attribute directly, Frost and Liu find a way around the file name timestamp attribute problem simply by moving a file. Frost and Liu find a way around file name timestamp attribute problem simply by moving a file. After which the standard information timestamp attribute propagated to file name attribute, and subsequently changing the standard information attribute once more when the file is moved back, and resulting in standard information and file name information timestamp attribute all set to value of the adversary's choosing. Anti-timestamp tool allows adversary to timestamp the MACE timestamp of a file with 100 nanosecond level precision. Forensic analysis are usually taught to spot 0 millisecond position as evidence that timestamping has occurred. And timestamping will allow file to blend in upon a cursory inspection. It uses the same undocumented NT-set information file API, which means privileged access is not necessary, and the file on NTFS FAT and mapped drive can also be timestamped. Nevertheless, because the recent release in timestamp tool was implemented using the same family of NT-set information file function based on the timestamping source code, it can be considered as a virtually identical type of program. The SEMMACE program by Joachim Schicht modifies standard information and file name timestamp by direct disk access. Consequently, it must acquire administrative privilege to operate from the user space, amounting the disk to be tampered with via the volume kernel drive command. However, acquiring direct disk access to the volume is not possible in Windows version since Vista. Accordingly, to perform timestamping operation with SEMMACE on such volume, this task must be approached using through booting a portable window installation or by attaching the disk to Windows machine. The timestamp change tool proposed in this paper uses a function that differs from those used by existing tools. Instead of anti-set file information file, the set file information by handle function is used. To use this function properly, it is necessary to know certain data structure that are required by the function. This function has 4 parameters. The first parameter is a file handler. The second is file information class. The third is LP file information. And the first is DW buffer size. The file basic information type of second parameter is used for changing the timestamp value by 100 nanoseconds resolution, and file rename information is used for setting the file name to be changed. This slide shows a part of source code of the timestamp changing tool. Left side shows time changing routine. Right side shows rename routine using set information by handle function respectively. We do experiments with the tool. The tool's name is change timestamp point exe with the file name and a timestamp. The tool name is change timestamp.exe with file name a possible timestamp arguments. Among a timestamp of standard information and file name information are given selectively. This is an argument example SIC. This is FNA, file name and exit time. And this is combination of with SIC and SIM FNA. SIC, SIM, and FNM. This picture is a screen capture of example of change standard information access timestamp. Conclusion. This paper described the timestamp changing tool designed using an API that differs from existing timestamp tool due to the use of set file information by handle function. This has the ability to change the timestamp at 109 nanosecond resolution, and the tool is also expected to be used as an important anti-forensic tool. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dr. Eunmi Kim, working as a researcher of Education Assignment Institute of Jeonbuk National University. The title of this research is Latent Profile Analysis according to the subject selection criteria of general high school students. As for the contents of this study, the steps are as follows. First, introduction. Second, method. Third, result. Fourth, conclusion and implications. Finally, references will be followed. According to the sequence of this study, the first step, introduction, is as follows. Exploring how high school students are classified according to the sub-factors constituting the subject selection criteria can provide information on the content and method of subject selection guidance according to group characteristics, which is useful for customized subject selection guidance considering individual differences. Considering the fact, the purpose of this study is to determine whether general high school students are categorized into groups with certain characteristics in subject selection, and there is difference between latent classes in importance and implementation through latent profile analysis. The research questions according to the purpose of this study are as follows. First, how many types of latent profiles for general high school students subject selection criteria are classified, and what are the characteristics of the classified latent groups? Second, is there a difference between the latent class of importance and implementation in general high school students subject selection? As a research method, the research model is as follows. In this study, latent profile analysis and importance and implementation were divided into cross-analysis models. In latent profile analysis, latent group classification and characteristics were analyzed, and in cross-analysis, it was analyzed by subdividing by latent class of importance and implementation. The structure of the latent profile analysis and the cross-analysis model of importance and implementation proposed in this study is shown in Figure 1. As for sampling, in this study, as shown in Table 1, a total of 1,072 students who had actually experienced subject selection according to the research topic were included. Next is the measuring tool. In this study, the subject selection criteria scale developed by Kim Eun-mi, Lee Jung-jung, Park Byung-gi was applied to analyze the latent profile of subject selection criteria. As shown in Table 2, the importance, which is a measuring tool for the recognition of subject selection criteria, and the implementation, which is an actual measuring tool, consisted of 34 items and 8 subfactors, respectively. Next is the data analysis. To determine the optimal number of latent groups derived through latent profile analysis, the 4 fitness indices were applied: information index, model comparison verification, classification quality, and intragroup classification ratio. Next, this is the research result. First, analysis of latent class profile of importance of subject selection criteria. Considering the characteristics of each latent group of the importance of the subject selection criteria presented in Table 3 and the average chart of the subject selection criteria factors presented in Figure 2, the 4 groups models that are finally selected were classified as high perception type, low perception type, self-direction type, and stability-oriented type. Table 3 shows the result of examining information index and model entropy to understand the quality of classification, and model comparison test to classify the latent group and identify the characteristics of the group. The mean and standard deviation for the 4 groups extracted through latent profile analysis are presented in Table 4. As a result of confirming the F and P values of the latent group by performing 1A ANOVA, it was possible to confirm the difference in the importance of the subject selection criteria for the latent group. Secondly, analysis of latent class profile of implementation of subject selection criteria. Considering the characteristics of each latent group of the implementation of the subject selection criteria presented in Table 5 and the average chart of the subject selection criteria factors presented in Figure 3, the 4 groups models that are finally selected were classified as high perception type, low perception type, self-direction type, and stability-oriented type. Table 6 shows the mean and standard deviation for the 4 groups extracted through the latent profile analysis of the implementation chart. As a result of performing 1A ANOVA to find out the difference between the 4 latent groups, the F and P values between the latent groups were found to be significant. Finally, the latent class relationship between the importance and the implementation of the subject selection criteria. A cross-analysis was performed to examine the difference in subject selection criteria between the latent classes of importance and implementation. As shown in Table 7, there is a difference between the latent groups in importance and implementation. As the conclusion and implications, this study has significance in the first latent profile analysis of general high school students' subject selection criteria. In addition, it can be meaningful in that it reveals the characteristics according to the type of latent class of importance and implementation, and raises the need for customized course selection guidance considering individual differences according to the characteristics of the latent group. The educational implication and suggestion of this study are as follows. First, among the latent profiles for the low perception type and stability-oriented type, the knowledge and experience of subject selection are appropriately mixed so that the mastery experiences can be meaningful in a deep connection with self-experience. Since the sampling of the survey subject is limited to some regions, it may be difficult to generalize the research results. Considering the variables that may affect subject selection, we expect a follow-up study based on the nationwide survey. References are as follows. Thank you for being with me. Thanks.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Insun Choi from Jeju National University. I'm honored to present my paper on Iiccc 2021. My paper title is Education Program to Prevent Digital Drama Through Artificial Intelligence. Let me start my presentation. The presentation will go on this order. First one is introduction, second one is digital drama, the third one is development of digital drama prevention program, lastly, the conclusion. As the online education environment became more familiar with COVID-19, the time students stayed in cyberspace increased. In line with this situation, physical violence has decreased, but cyber violence, which